city, it would be Las Vegas. Flamboyant, awake 24 hours a day, driven by money, rooted in gambling and the mob. Last March, I came to Vegas searching for Don King. I was there with hundreds of reporters for Mike Tyson Razor Ruddock fight. As an investigative reporter, I have always been interested in the exercise of power, and nowhere is it more naked than in the world of boxing. I have written about boxing for the past 30 years, including several tough articles about King. Mostly, he laughed them off. He even toyed with giving me a long interview for a book I'm writing on his remarkable life.
I think it's just a great, great town and great people. And
Don King is bigger than boxing. He is a cultural phenomenon. He's been on the cover of just about every national magazine. He's been invited to the White House by the last 3 presidents. My purpose was to try to get beneath the electrified hair and mesmerizing personality. But after I asked Don King my first question, he exploded in anger.
But for a scumbag like you, Jack Newfield, that is prejudice. You don't have no right to do what you do. You're not fair, impartial, and objective. Do your thing.
I was taken aback by the intensity of his rage and by his attempt to intimidate me.
You ain't got nothing in you that spells truth. You're the biggest prevaricator and lying SOB that ever was, man. You are nothing. You are nothing.
Can I just watch that?
The public may see Don King as a benign rogue, but his roots go back to a violent past in blue-collar Cleveland, Ohio, where intimidation was a way of life.
Excellent.
And we're coming right up to the spot where, yes, sir, maybe 30 feet ahead, somewhere in there, right about in that area.
I returned to King's old neighborhood with Bob Tunney, a former Cleveland police officer. Tunney was an eyewitness when King, a numbers racketeer, stomped a man to death in 1966.
We were driving west on Cedar, and I saw a few hundred feet ahead, a man lying on the sidewalk, a man standing over him, kicking him in the head. We drove up there immediately, stopped the car, and I jumped out of the vehicle, and the man standing up had a revolver in his hand. So I pulled out my gun. I says, "Drop the gun." He took the gun, threw it on the back trunk of another vehicle that was parked there. I went over immediately and grabbed that gun, and as I did, this gentleman standing up just went over to the man lying down and gave him one vicious kick again right in the head.
Police officers rushed to aid the victim. One of them took this photograph. Detective Tunney is shown leaning over the man, Sam Garrett. Garrett weighed 100 pounds less than King, and he owed King $600.
And he kept saying to me, "Donald, I'll pay you, I'll pay you, I'll pay you." He repeated it a couple times, and after that he just lapsed in unconsciousness.
Donald King was well known to the Cleveland Police Department. His rap sheet shows that he was arrested more than 30 times between 1951 and 1966 on charges ranging from gambling to assault. In 1954, King killed a man in a shootout. It was a case of self-defense. A high school graduate with a quick mind for mathematics, King had been working in the illegal numbers business since age 18. In the early 1960s, he was the biggest numbers boss in Cleveland and was grossing $15,000 a day. A previously undisclosed FBI document reports that King was kicking back a portion of his profits to the Cleveland Mafia in return for protection of his numbers operation. I also learned new information about the Sam Garrett murder case. Detective Tunney told me he was offered what he believes was a bribe.
Probably the fall of '66, I got approached by an attorney. And he says, "You know, Tunney, Donald can do a lot for you." And I knew what he meant right away, and I said, "Well, forget it."
Police reports allege that King spent $30,000 to buy off witnesses to the killing. It seemed to work. None showed up to testify at the trial. But based on the eyewitness account of Detective Tunney, a jury convicted Don King of second-degree murder after just 4 hours of deliberation. Then, in a highly unusual move, the judge met with King and his lawyer and reduced the jury's murder verdict down to manslaughter. Nobody from the prosecutor's office was present at the meeting.
If we didn't involve robbery,
Carl DeLau was Tunney's boss in the homicide unit. He suspects the case was fixed.
But definitely, why would that reduction of penalty from second-degree murder to manslaughter take place on a Saturday morning without the proper authorities being notified? Something was very radically wrong, and it was a miscarriage of justice. There's no question about it.
I got in a fist fight in what I call frustrations of the ghetto expressing themselves. When you're dealing with
King served 4 years and got out of prison in 1971. He later gave his version of the homicide to a British reporter.
How did you kill a man in a fist fight?
Well, we was fighting one another and we was kicking one another, and his head hit the concrete, and it must have been a pretty bad blow, which I've suffered deep contrition for since it happened. But nevertheless, I was instrumental in the fatality of a fellow human being whom happened to be one of my personal friends. Unfortunately for me, they found out that I was Don King, the guy that was running the numbers. Now the sensationalism came into play. Don King, the numbers baron, the numbers czar, the numbers kingpin. So they began to try me for numbers rather than for an accidental death and the fatality of a fellow human being.
As to allegations that he tampered with justice, King denies the charges. And in 1983, King was able to obtain a full pardon from the governor of Ohio for the Sam Garrett killing.